Hello, folks. Welcome back. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania. A recent report from Reuters, written by Ted Hessen, has got a lot of tongues wagging and people freaking out in South Africa. I'm here to urge caution and to relax and take some deep breaths. There's a normal course of events, and the information in there, while possible, isn't set. In a story entitled Exclusive, Trump administration weighing refugee cap of 40,000 with focus on white South Africans by Ted Hessen in Reuters. Number one, the previous cap was 100,000 last year, set by Joe Biden. And a lot of South Africans are like, what about the rest of us? What are only 40,000? First off, the 40,000 is not for you. That's a global cap. We'll talk more about that. And it was only 100,000 last year. There are 2.8 million white Afrikaners in South Africa. There are 6 to 8 million colored South Africans and 1.3 million Indians, all of whom presumably qualify for this program. Did anyone in their wildest imaginations think the United States was going to take all those people in a single year? People need to be realistic and pay attention. President Trump's administration is discussing a refugee admissions cap of about 40,000 a year for the coming fiscal year, which begins October 1st, 2025, with the majority allocated to white South Africans. That's factually incorrect. Perhaps the majority are allocated to South Africa, but not to white South Africans. Angie Salazar, a top refugee program official at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, yet another executive branch agency that deals with refugees, told state-level refugee workers that she expected the cap to be 40,000 for the coming year. Now, this is according to an email summary of an August 1st meeting reviewed by Reuters. Two officials who spoke in condition of anonymity to Ted Hessen said 30 of the 40,000 space would be devoted to Afrikaners, a largely Dutch-descended minority in South Africa. Two problems with that. Number one, 30,000 of the 40,000 devoted to Afrikaners. Really? So what about the coloreds and Indians who are applying for the program who have qualified for it? Are they not included? I suspect the 30,000 slots would be for South Africans, racial minorities, not for Afrikaners, and that someone in the State Department is talking out their backside. Also, the Afrikaners are not largely Dutch descended. They are largely German descent, then Dutch, then French Huguenot, and oftentimes Khoi and San, as well as Indonesian in smaller amounts. Now, a separate person apparently familiar with the matter said a cap of as low as 12,000 total had been discussed. That would be the lowest cap under the Trump administration. During his previous administration, he continually lowered the cap down to 15,000 in his last year. 12,000 would be the lowest in recent history if that happens. And then Biden, of course, raised the ceilings. Annual numerical ceilings, in case you're wondering where these come from, on the refugee admissions are proposed by the president, but then they require congressional approval to let those folks come in the country. So the president apparently is considering, at least his staff, a figure of 40,000 for the next fiscal year. That's up to Congress to approve. Refugee ceilings are found in the annual report to Congress on proposed refugee admission for the fiscal year. The most recent report as of airtime was for 2024. That report includes the totals of actual recent arrivals from the previous fiscal year, vice the projected caps. Now, refugee arrivals by fiscal year are also found by country in the fiscal year annual report to Congress from the Office of Refugee Resettlement. And here's a list from 2021. It's the most recently publicly available published report. 15 countries accounted for 95% of arrivals. You can see none of them from South Africa because they weren't included. But this data can be very misleading, especially in light of conjured up special admissions programs under the Biden regime that do not take into account tens of thousands of Afghans granted special entry in the year shown here and not appearing on this report, and subsequent admission of over 200,000 Ukrainians over the next 2 years, for example. Now, President Biden reversed the downward trend that Trump had set in refugee arrivals. In May 2021, he revised Trump's annual admissions cap to 62,500 for the remainder of that fiscal year. In October, he doubled that for 2022 to 125,000 and maintained that for 23 and 24. I think earlier I said 100,000, but it was actually 125. The majority of the 2024 admission slots were allocated for refugees from Africa and Latin America, as well as the Caribbean. So the final question here that's come up repeatedly, but unrelated to this, is where are these refugees resettled? Well, refugees are resettled in 49 of the 50 U.S. states, Hawaii being the exception. Generally, several states take the higher numbers, and most recently that's included Texas, California, New York, Florida, and Pennsylvania in 2024. They made up 1/3 of all refugee admissions, those handful of states. So folks, don't panic, don't freak out. I don't know what people are expecting. I've tried to tell people from the very beginning that you're not going to have everyone come over here at once. That's insane. Logistically, it's impossible. If in fact 30,000 South Africans came here over the next fiscal year, that would be an average of 82 South Africans per day coming to America. Given on average there's 2 flights direct from South Africa to the US per day, that's a huge logistical demand on 2 planes to reserve 82 seats for South Africans. That's considering every single day of the year: Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving, every holiday. So take a deep breath. And for the people who've already applied or put their statement of interest in, do not freak out. This is a proposed cap, which is required. There has to be a cap proposed, and Congress has to approve this is how many people we're going to let in. That's just the law. It has to be done. This is a proposed cap for 2026, which begins on October 1st of 2025. We have 2 weeks left in August. We have all of September. 6 weeks left this year for people who've already done PRM emails and those who've already also gotten responses on the statement of interest from the 12th of May going forward. And those numbers will not be counted against that proposed cap. All right. I hope that calms people down and it makes sense. And for the people going, oh, what about us? You know what? We don't owe you anything. We don't owe anybody anything. This is our country. We're a sovereign state. We generously allow people to come over here. And whether we allow 0 or 2 million people to come over here is our government's decision. And if you feel abandoned, well, there's the rest of the world to apply for refugee status. Try Ireland. Try the UK. Try Australia. Try New Zealand. You'll find that you're not going to get it there because they think that there's nothing bad going on in South Africa. Well, there is. And the U.S. has recognized that. What say you folks? You find this useful? Cheers.